Hi and welcome to Reddit Confessions. What you're about to hear isn't a revenge fantasy. It's not a dramatic scream into the void. It's quieter than that. Sadder. It's what happens when a man realizes he's become invisible. At his own dinner table. Let's begin. There's this thing I started doing. I'd serve her plate last at dinner and leave it completely empty. No food. No garnish. Just an empty plate. No explanation. She'd sit down across from me, notice it, glance up, confused. Sometimes she'd blink twice. Once she even frowned. But she never asked. Not once. That went on for 11 days. 11 empty plates. 11 silent meals. 11 nights where I waited desperately for her to say something. To notice me. She never did. So on day 12 I didn't set the table at all. I left. Quietly. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the last real sentence she ever said to me. It wasn't "I love you." It wasn't even "I'm sorry." It was this, "Your kisses make me pity you." And then, with a sigh like I just dropped trash near her shoe, she muttered, "Get off." That's it. That's the whole eulogy for our 12-year marriage. No shouting. No scandal. Just a quiet death from neglect. She used to say I was too sensitive. That I read into things. So I stopped reading. I stopped reacting. I stopped trying. And the most painful part? She didn't notice until I disappeared from her world like I never existed. But when she finally did notice, she didn't cry. She raged. She wanted answers. She wanted closure. She wanted someone to blame. But all she got was the truth I left behind. And a note inside the 12th empty plate. That's where everything changed. That's where this story truly begins. The 12th night was colder than usual. Not because of the weather, but because something inside me had already started to rot away. I didn't set the table like usual. I didn't ask if she was hungry or offer to warm something up. Instead, I placed one white porcelain plate in front of her. Same as the others, same as always. Only this time, I slid a folded note beneath the plate's center before she walked into the kitchen. She barely looked at me as she sat down. She didn't say thank you. She didn't ask why there was no food. I just sat across from her, arms folded, watching. And she did what she always did. Opened her phone and started scrolling. But this time, something shifted. She tapped her nails against the rim of the plate. Once, twice. Then finally, she lifted it. She noticed the note. She frowned. She unfolded it slowly. Her eyes darted across the page. No gasps, no tears, but her whole body stiffened like she'd been electrocuted. Then, without a word, she stood up, left the room, and slammed the bedroom door behind her. That note was only 9 words long. I remember each one clearly. I had written, "You stopped seeing me, so I stopped existing." The silence afterward was heavier than any screaming match we'd ever had. I didn't follow her. I didn't care to. I sat in that kitchen until the candle on the counter burned out, leaving me in complete darkness. I liked it that way. It was around 1:45 a.m. when I heard her phone buzz on the coffee table. She'd left it there in her rush to disappear behind the bedroom door. I shouldn't have looked. I really shouldn't have. But I did. And that's when everything fell apart in one flash of a screen. The message was from someone named Alexis. But my stomach turned the moment I saw the profile picture. It was no woman. It was a man I recognized. My brother, Ethan. The message read, "You didn't say if it was safe to come by tonight. He's still in his little sulking phase?" I froze. My body didn't respond. My thoughts didn't race. It was worse than that. My whole mind paused, like someone had pressed a button and turned me off completely. I reread the message 3 times. Each time, a different word stabbed deeper. The sulking. Tonight. So this wasn't a one-time thing. This had been happening. Ongoing. Carefully planned. She had turned my own brother into an accomplice in the slow burial of my dignity. And she was feeding him details. About my pain. About my sadness. As if it were entertainment. I took her phone, walked it into the bedroom, and dropped it gently on the bed next to her. She was under the covers, facing the wall, pretending to sleep. I read the message, I said calmly. Nothing. No shift. No apology. Just that same sick silence that had hollowed out our home. So I left. No yelling. No begging. No final conversation. I packed a bag and walked out the door. But not before writing another note. This one longer and far more revealing. And taping it to the bathroom mirror where I knew she'd see it first thing in the morning. What that second note said. Well, let's just say it didn't just mention her betrayal. It exposed his too. By the time I reached the end of the block, I still hadn't looked back once. I don't know if that made me brave or just completely broken. My hands were shaking as I clutched my overnight bag. A ragged duffel I'd packed without thinking. 3 shirts. 2 pairs of socks. My toothbrush. Nothing else. No wedding ring. No photo. Not even my charger. I wasn't running away. I was just done pretending there was something left to fight for. I didn't go far that night. Slept in my car. Parked behind the 24-hour laundromat near the edge of town. Nobody bothered me. Nobody noticed me. And for the first time in what felt like years, I felt like I could breathe. Not fully. Not deeply. But it was something. But let's rewind. Because before I left the house, I taped a letter to the mirror in our bathroom. Not just for her. It was for both of them. I titled it, For Shelby, and for Ethan if you're still hiding in our walls. I made sure the handwriting was slow and neat. She always hated my messy scribbles. I wanted her to read every word, without excuse. It said, Shelby, don't worry. I'm not going to scream or break things, or humiliate you the way you quietly humiliated me every day for the last 2 years. I know it's easier to fall out of love than admit you never really were. That you just liked the way I looked at you. That you only stayed as long as I made you feel better about yourself. I forgive you. For the lies. For the silence. For the way you talked about me when you thought I couldn't hear. I even forgive the smirk you gave me the last time I kissed you. Because now I understand that pity isn't love. It's power. But I don't forgive Ethan. Because I knew you were capable of this. But I didn't think he was. He was supposed to protect me from women like you. Instead, he helped you hide. I'm not going to burn the house down or drain our accounts. I left you with exactly what you always wanted, freedom. And one last piece of advice. Tell Ethan to stop using the name Alexis. It's lazy. I signed it, folded the paper into a triangle, and used Scotch tape to center it perfectly across the glass where her face would be the next time she brushed her teeth. Then I walked out and didn't say a word. I didn't even turn off the bathroom light. I wanted that letter to glow under the cheap LED bulb until it burned into her memory. Like a scar. The next morning, my phone had 17 missed calls. 3 from her. 14 from Ethan. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I watched the chaos from a distance. From the burner Facebook account I'd created 2 months earlier. I knew something was coming. I just hadn't expected it to be this theatrical. She posted a picture of the bathroom mirror. Captioned it, When someone leaves you a goodbye letter like they're in a soap opera. And just like that, she turned my heartbreak into a punchline. But the comments section didn't go the way she expected. Because someone else, someone I hadn't heard from in years, left a comment that said, We all told you not to mess with Everett. You just couldn't help yourself. And that one comment lit the fuse that burned down the whole illusion she'd built. It wasn't the post itself that caught fire, it was the comment thread. Shelby thought she was being clever by mocking my letter online. She knew exactly what she was doing. Trying to flip the narrative before anyone else could. Playing the role of the empowered woman who was left by a needy husband and chose to laugh about it. She always did love being the center of attention, especially if she could dress it in sarcasm and get applause from her friends. But she miscalculated. Badly. Because the person who left that first reply, the one that cracked her mask, was someone neither of us had spoken to in years. Her name was Mallory. And once upon a time, she was Shelby's best friend. Until Shelby destroyed that friendship, too. Mallory's comment had just enough bite to get noticed, just vague enough to sound ominous. That's why it blew up. We all told you not to mess with Everett. You just couldn't help yourself. I remember staring at that comment on my burner account like I'd just seen a ghost. Mallory had moved out of state after a falling out with Shelby that was never fully explained to me. I always thought it had something to do with Mallory dating someone Shelby had feelings for. Typical mess. But now I was seeing it differently. Much differently. Shelby didn't reply to the comment. Not at first. She went completely silent online for about 20 minutes, which for her was an eternity. Then she deleted the post altogether. That was when I knew something had struck a nerve. It took Mallory exactly 6 minutes to repost a screenshot of Shelby's deleted mirror letter post. With the caption, "Deleting it won't erase it, Shell. Want to tell everyone what really happened in Atlanta? Or should I?" I swear I felt the oxygen leave the room. Atlanta, the city where Shelby went for that corporate retreat last year. She told me it was a women's leadership conference, 3 nights in a hotel with seminars and keynote speakers. I even packed her bag while she was running late. I remember she was nervous, but I thought it was just stage fright. I never questioned it. Until now. Mallory's post gained traction fast. Too fast. Her followers and Shelby's former friends started chiming in with passive-aggressive comments, some laughing, others hinting that the truth was always going to come out eventually. And that's when Mallory sent me a message. She found my backup account. I hadn't even posted anything. Just silently watching. Somehow she knew. "Everett, if you want the full story, call me. I still have the screenshots. And a voicemail from your brother." My hands went cold. I didn't even think. I just called her. My voice cracked when she answered. She sounded calm but tired, like she'd been carrying a truth too long. The conversation that followed unraveled a history I hadn't been ready to face. According to Mallory, Shelby had been planning an exit strategy for almost a year, but not in the way I thought. The Atlanta trip? It wasn't a retreat. It was a weekend with Ethan, my own brother, in a hotel booked under her maiden name. Mallory had helped plan the trip before she knew who the other man was. When she found out, she threatened to expose them both. That's why Shelby cut her off and told everyone Mallory was unstable. But Mallory wasn't the villain in this story. She was the one who tried to stop the train wreck before it happened. And she had receipts. She emailed me a folder titled, "Truth Hurts But Heals." Inside were screenshots of messages, dates, booking confirmations, and yes, an audio file. A voicemail. It was Ethan's voice. And I'll never forget the first line he said. "Hey babe, the room's under her old last name. That way your husband doesn't see it on the statement." Smart, right? Couldn't breathe. It was one thing to suspect betrayal. It was another to hear it. To feel the calculation. The smugness. I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't scream. I just sat in my car until morning, staring at the windshield like it might give me a new past if I waited long enough. But that wasn't rock bottom. Rock bottom came when I got a call from my mother. She was crying. She said Ethan had shown up at their house, furious, ranting, and that he had said something that made her drop the phone. The call from my mother came just after 6 a.m., waking me in my car from the first sliver of sleep I'd gotten in 2 days. Her voice was trembling, not because she didn't know what was happening, but because, for the first time in her life, she didn't know which of her sons to believe. I could hear the confusion in every breath she took. "Everett," she said. "Ethan was here. He said you're spreading lies, that you hacked his phone, that you're having a breakdown." I didn't say anything. Couldn't. Then her voice broke entirely, and I'll never forget what she said next. "He looked me in the eyes, Everett, and he smiled when he said you'd never recover from this." I think that was the moment she realized something was terribly wrong. Ethan didn't come home to explain. He came to gloat, and my mother, God help her, knew the difference. She kept talking, her voice caught between heartbreak and disbelief. "He said you're trying to ruin his career, that you're emotionally unstable, that you're trying to punish Shelby for leaving you. Everett, I don't know what to believe." But she did know. She just didn't want it to be true. So I told her everything. I told her about the note, about the message from Ethan's burner contact, Alexis, about the hotel booking in Atlanta, about Mallory and the evidence she had kept like a buried time capsule. I even played her the voicemail. There was a long pause on the line after it ended. No tears, just silence. And then she said, "He lied to me. He looked me in the eyes and lied." It's a strange thing when your parents grieve someone who's still alive. But that's exactly what was happening. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying because the image of the son she thought she raised had just been shattered beyond repair. And then came the knock at my window. I jumped, looked up. It was a police officer. Apparently Shelby had filed a wellness report, saying I had vanished and left concerning notes. She told them she was worried I might harm myself or someone else. A convenient twist, considering the only note I left was one of quiet dignity. I explained everything to the officer calmly, showed my ID, gave them my location history. He asked if I was safe. I said yes. He nodded and left. But in the back of my mind, I knew what Shelby was doing. She was trying to flip the story before I could control the narrative, painting me as the unhinged husband, the obsessive loser who couldn't handle rejection. She was counting on the world to believe her first, to believe that the man who once begged for her affection had now lost his grip entirely. But she had one problem. Evidence doesn't blink. And Mallory? She was done playing quiet. She had already posted another screenshot, this time of a conversation between Shelby and a mutual friend. The message was dated 3 months before I even suspected anything. Shelby, "Everett's kisses make me pity him. I want to vomit every time he touches me. I swear, I'm just buying time till Ethan makes it official." Not only did she mock me in private, she was openly admitting the affair before anything collapsed. And now that Mallory had posted it publicly, it was out of Shelby's control. Within minutes, people started resharing it. Not in a viral way, in a surgical way. Former co-workers, friends from college, even someone who attended our wedding and had once called her inspirational. The truth had taken on a life of its own, and it had teeth. Later that afternoon, Mallory called me again. She said, "I hope you don't hate me for not telling you sooner." I didn't. I hated myself more for being the kind of man who let it all happen quietly. But the part that hit hardest? She told me Ethan had tried to delete everything, his texts, his social media, even his email. But it was too late. Screenshots had already been forwarded to people he worked with, including his firm's HR department. She told me, "You didn't burn him, Everett. His own arrogance did." But there was still one person left who hadn't said a word. Shelby. And when she finally did reach out, it wasn't what I expected. Not even close. I didn't want to listen to her voice ever again. I had told myself that if Shelby tried to call, I wouldn't answer. If she sent a text, I wouldn't open it. I didn't want to know what lie she'd spin next or how she'd try to manipulate what was now painfully obvious. But curiosity is cruel, and silence can be louder than rage. It was 2 days after everything blew up online. Mallory had released enough evidence to collapse whatever version of reality Shelby had been trying to peddle. My brother had gone completely dark. No posts, no responses, nothing. My mother had called to say Ethan packed a bag and left town. Didn't say where he was going, didn't say goodbye. Not even to her. I thought it was finally over. Then the voicemail came. I was sitting in my car again, parked near the lake we used to visit when we were newly married. I don't know why I went there. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of masochism. I hadn't checked my phone all morning, but when I finally did, I saw her name at the top of my screen. One missed call. One voicemail. I hovered my thumb over the play button for a long time. Then I gave in. Shelby's voice was unrecognizable. Fragile. Slow. There was no arrogance, no sarcasm, no dismissive tone like the one she used the night she said my kisses made her pity me. She sounded like someone who had just learned how truly replaceable they were. "Everett, I don't know how to start this," she began. Then paused so long I thought the message had ended. "I know what Mallory posted. I know what you've seen. And I'm not going to deny it. I was awful. I don't even have a defense." She sighed deeply. "But I need to tell you something. Not to win you back. I know that's not possible. But because you deserve to know the truth about Ethan." That's when her voice cracked for real. "He didn't love me. Everett, he never did. You were the game. You were the target. I froze. I thought he cared about me. I thought I was finally with someone who chose me. But it was never about me. It was always about getting something from you. It was about hurting you. I didn't see it until it was too late. He used me. And now I think he's going to disappear and leave me with the mess. She sniffled. I'm sorry. That doesn't fix anything. I know that. But you need to know he recorded you. Your voice. Your rants. Your breakdowns. The private stuff. I didn't know until a few days ago. But he has them. And he said he was going to use it if you ever tried to expose him. She paused again. I didn't agree to it. But I didn't stop it either. Then she said the one thing that knocked the air out of my lungs. If you give me a chance, I can help make it go away. There it was. The offer. A twisted olive branch from the woman who had betrayed me, asking me to come back. Not for love, not for forgiveness, but to clean up a mess she helped create. The voicemail ended with 5 quiet words. I'll wait for your call. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. It was like watching someone set a fire to your house, then offer to help water the ashes. She was desperate. But worse than that, she was still trying to negotiate. That same night, I got a second call. This time from an unknown number. It was a lawyer. Ethan's lawyer. They said there was a privacy concern involving materials I allegedly acquired without consent. That I had 72 hours to delete and acknowledge destruction of all content. They had no idea that the content wasn't in my hands. It was in Mallory's, and she wasn't deleting anything. So I made my decision. I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore, and I wasn't going to be blackmailed into silence. I had 72 hours to disappear. That's what Ethan's lawyer said. It wasn't a threat in the traditional sense. It was dressed up in legal language, polished and sterile. But the message was clear: you're not supposed to fight back. They counted on my silence. The same silence that had kept me obedient through years of subtle humiliation. But they forgot something. I didn't have anything left to lose anymore. No wife, no brother, no home, just truth. So I got in my car and drove. Ethan worked for a boutique consulting firm in a downtown high-rise, the kind of place with exposed concrete, floor-to-ceiling windows, and too many people trying to outsmug each other in overpriced blazers. I knew his office hours. I also knew he rarely showed up early. He liked making an entrance. But I was there before anyone else, sitting in the coffee shop across the street with a flash drive in my pocket and a sealed manila folder in my bag. Inside that folder were printed screenshots of every message he ever sent Shelby. Hotel bookings, voice transcriptions, even his voicemail, the one where he coached Shelby on how to keep their tracks covered. Everything. I didn't tell Mallory I was doing it. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't even tell myself. I just stood up, crossed the street, walked through the building lobby, smiled politely at the security guard, and told him I was there to deliver a confidential envelope to Mr. Ethan Ridley. I didn't flinch when I said it. I didn't blink. They buzzed me up. His floor was eerily quiet, too early for the suits to fill the halls. The receptionist hadn't even taken her seat yet. I walked straight to his office, placed the folder right in the center of his pristine glass desk, and beside it the flash drive. I had written one sentence on the sticky note attached to the drive. You made me invisible. Let's see how you like it. And then I left. No drama, no cameras, no shouting match. Just facts. Clean. Surgical. Honest. I didn't go home. I drove until I hit the coast. I found a cheap motel with peeling paint and a broken ice machine and collapsed onto the bed fully dressed. My phone buzzed twice within the next hour. First from an unknown number, likely his lawyer again, and then from my mother. I ignored both. Instead, I turned off the lights and stared at the ceiling. For once, it didn't feel like the roof was caving in on me. It felt like the dust had finally started to settle. The fallout came faster than I expected. Mallory called the next morning. Everett, she said, out of breath. It's happening. Apparently, someone at Ethan's office had gotten the flash drive before he did. A junior analyst. He plugged it in, saw the contents, and, probably assuming it was company business, sent it up the ladder to legal. By the time Ethan arrived, HR was already in his office. 2 executives were waiting. The building security logs showed that I'd been there. Ethan tried to claim I forged everything, but it was too late. Digital footprints don't lie. And the voicemail? His voice was undeniable. He wasn't fired on the spot. He was suspended pending investigation, which in corporate speak means you're finished. We just need time to clean up the mess you made. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel powerful. I felt free. But then came the last surprise. Shelby texted me. Not a voicemail. Not a call. Just one simple message that said, I read the letter again. I see it now. You weren't the problem. I was. It didn't undo the damage. It didn't stitch anything back together. But it felt human. Maybe even honest. I stared at her words for a long time. And then I deleted the message without replying. I wasn't doing this for redemption. I was doing it for closure. But there's one last chapter to this story. One that even I didn't see coming. Because as I packed my bag in that motel and prepared to return to my quiet, unknown life, someone knocked on my door. And the person standing on the other side wasn't who I ever expected to see again. The knock at my motel door came just before checkout. I wasn't expecting anyone, certainly not her. Mallory stood there in jeans and a hoodie, holding 2 paper coffee cups and an envelope. No dramatic entrance. No smug look. Just quiet understanding. She offered me one of the cups and said, Don't worry. I didn't spike it with revenge. We sat on the concrete steps outside the room, listening to the sound of the ocean in the distance. She handed me the envelope. It's from your brother's firm, she said. They sent it to my place by mistake. I figured you'd want to see it before you disappeared again. I opened it. Inside was a formal letter. Ethan had resigned. No excuses. No press release. Just a quiet, internal acknowledgement that his position had become untenable. Mallory smiled when I looked up. You didn't destroy him, she said. He did that himself. You just stopped carrying the weight. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel pitted or overlooked or tolerated. I felt like I existed on my own terms again. I went home a week later, not to the house. I sold it. Quietly. I didn't even tell Shelby. I left the proceeds from the sale in a trust account split between 2 charities she once claimed to support. That was my final note to her. One last act of kindness she'd never get to thank me for. My parents and I are healing. Slowly. My mom sent me a photo of our old family dog with the caption, He still knows who the good brother is. That made me cry. Mallory and I, we kept in touch. Nothing romantic. Just real. No masks. No pity. Just 2 people who survived the same storm, sitting on opposite ends of the wreckage, waving to each other across the silence. I don't regret the years I gave Shelby. I regret how long I stayed silent. But maybe that silence was necessary, because without it, I never would have heard the truth when it finally spoke up. Now I live in a small town by the coast. I walk to the market every Saturday. I take my coffee without bitterness. And once a week, I open the window at night, feel the wind on my face, and remind myself that disappearing wasn't the end. It was the beginning. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Now I want to hear from you. What moment in this story hit you the hardest or felt eerily familiar? Have you ever been invisible in your own life, only to find your voice again? Leave a comment down below. I read every one of them. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Confessions, where real stories find real voices. Until next time, take care of your peace. You deserve it.